What's up, guys? Say hello to the collective. For those of you who don't know, I grew up in New York and started playing drums when I was about 5 years old. So my father decided to introduce me to the tabla. For a few years, I was kind of just toying around with it. It was kind of this fun little instrument I'd play in the living room, and then I'd go spend hours playing drums. And then I think I was about 7 years old, and I saw Zakir Bhai perform in New York, and pretty much changed my life. More so because it didn't seem like a classical concert, it was a rock concert. It was the first time I saw tablas as something where, you know, this is an instrument with so much possibility. And when I got to college, I started to listen to drum and bass music. And back then we were calling it jungle music. And found this analogous space between the tabla and jungle, which evolved into drum and bass. And at the same time, I was studying audio engineering at NYU. And I was learning a whole bunch of stuff that I could not apply later on because the technology changed. We were recording to 2-inch tape, so I was learning how to splice tape, and we were editing songs that way and sticking tape up on the wall and all that kind of stuff. The day I graduated, Pro Tools was available in your bedroom, so that changed. But what also changed is that I started making my own music. So this is my tabla setup. Right now I'm using one electric tabla and one acoustic tabla. And what I mean by electric is that they're internally mic'd. Originally I was using various different mics. I experimented with different mics. And then one day I was watching a video of marching band and noticed that all of them had internal mics. And they were able to really kind of separate the sound. So I actually called up the marching band, and they actually put me in touch with Sennheiser. And I got the Sennheiser 646s, which I've been using now for about 10 years in these drums. Now I get them built. So just a simple example of what the internal mic sounds like. I'll first demonstrate what the acoustic sound is just with the top mic. So you can hear that, this is how we would mic the drums if I was doing a classical show. But once I get on the stage with a band like this, or when I'm in an electronic context, or if I'm DJing and I'm playing tabla alongside, that's when I bring in the internal mic. And this is kind of a crude example of what we're able to do once we enhance it. So you can kind of hear the... And also when I'm playing live and there's a monitor sitting next to me, I also use the feedback. So it becomes almost a different character. So it takes on a bit more of the role of a bass, and I'm able to actually play melodies on it. It's also a talking drum, so the two kind of bring this kind of male-female energy to whatever it is that I'm playing. In the studio, I'm able to send these into either my laptop or through whatever effects processors that we're using. And then I'm able to really kind of manipulate, not only in the studio, but live, I'm really able to manipulate the sound in ways where I'm able to enhance the bass. I'm able to enhance certain frequencies that usually you would get either distortion or feedback, because these are not very loud instruments, as acoustic instruments. But because they're isolated, I'm able to get a much more dynamic range of what I'm able to do. I also was working with a musician named Jojo Mayer, who's probably one of the most famous drummers on the planet right now. And we worked together for about 8 years. We had this concept called reverse engineering, which was basically about taking electronic music and then playing it live. And the way we would play it live is that we would imitate the machines. So this was something where he was on the kit, I was on keyboards and tabla, and we were approaching the music that way. So when I got into the studio, it was about both retaining that and also approaching it in that electronic way, where I could actually record individual parts of the tabla and then play it on the keyboard, and like I would a drum part. When I would program, I don't sit and look at a grid. I just sit and I play it to a click track. And then I'll go in and fix it and chop it up and use what I've played. And so once I started doing that, I started doing that with the tabla as well. Once I've recorded my tablas, I'm able to then go in and besides putting it through all kinds of different processing, and I like to chop up all of my parts and then recompose it. Especially in electronic music, that's a really effective way of using not just tabla, but any kind of percussion, that you're able to kind of use them as individual elements and recompose it. So it's both played organically and programmed at the same time. So this is a song from my new album called Be Like Water, where it's a tabla-focused track, and it's kind of an ode to Bruce Lee. So there are moments in the track that are actually just played moments, and then what I would do is take the tail of a particular piece of maybe of a 4-bar phrase and chop that up, and then kind of just manipulate little bits so that it's kind of, for the listener as well, they're feeling like they're hearing something that has this human quality, and then all of a sudden it goes into a completely different space. And also, when you're making quantized music in the electronic context, you want to be able to kind of put everything in a grid. Both Ableton and Logic both have the ability to flex the audio. So flexing audio means you're breaking it up into individual parts. So you can speed it up, you can slow it down, you can take it out of context and stick it in another track. I can change the snare drum and use the tabla as a snare and things like that. I mean, if you're making heavy metal music, then you might want to distort the tablas, which is another thing that sounds quite interesting, because not only is it a rhythmic instrument, but it's a tonal instrument. And the tabla actually has 2 notes. You have your main note, and then you have a half step up in the lower octave. Distortion is the kind of thing that plays on overtones of an instrument. So flute and tabla and things like that sound really nice through distortion. So in the context of electronic music, and especially for me in drum and bass and now bass music, oftentimes I'm able to replace the bass with the sound of the baya, of the low-end drum. The thing about drum and bass music, or breaks, is that the beat keeps turning around. And when you do that, this is very similar to how tabla players approach, when they're doing a tabla solo. So this becomes a really fertile ground for experimentation, not only with tabla, but all kinds of different percussion instruments, especially when you start to manipulate them sonically. Because we're also used to hearing certain instruments in a certain context. So me and Warren were always joking about the fact that we thought Zakir and Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin looked like brothers. I was just joking about what would it be like if they had jammed together. So he picked up the acoustic guitar and I sat down on the tabla, and we just kind of, I think in one go, we just created the spine of this piece of music. So we were starting to play with this motif, and we kind of went through some different feels, went from 4 to 3 and changed keys and kind of took this journey. And then once we listened to it, we were like, this is a nice arrangement. I got on the drums and he got on the bass, and then we added some keys. And then that track sat there for I think almost a year. I had been taking about 13, 14 trips back and forth to India every year. On one of the trips, I started writing lyrics for songs for the album. One of the set of lyrics, I started singing on this piece, which was Up. So then I went to the studio in Delhi and recorded the vocals, and I think we went back and re-recorded some of the parts. Usually the best thing to do after you have thrown all your ideas on the wall and you've, made this massive sound, the last thing is to deconstruct. To go in and figure out what really needs to be there, and then start taking stuff out and start muting things, and then you reveal what you had originally put there. Because we forget, you put something down and then you add all kinds of layers on top, and then you've lost that. And you don't even realize you've lost it. You're just scratching your head like, what happened? And then, so start muting everything and start to listen to each individual part again. And then you start to understand what your original idea was. With this particular crew of musicians, there's so much that we're able to do, and so much music we're able to draw from. And the other thing is that once I've created something in the studio, put it on an album and released it, 2 things. One, I hardly listen to it, because by that time I'm like, that's for you guys now, I'm done with it. But when it comes back to life is when we play it live, when we reinterpret it. And I also then let go of the recorded version. Then it's about reinventing it for the band. So if we don't have that orchestral part, then Warren will play the orchestral stuff on the guitar, so that we retained the essence of what the piece was supposed to be without having to strictly have all of those sounds. I mean, we use electronics, and sometimes we have Ableton running some of the parts and things like that, but that's not necessarily as important to me, because I think when an audience actually gets to witness the chemistry of musicians on stage, I think that's one of the most powerful things that you can present on a stage. So maybe we can play it. This song is called Up.
I've been blowing in the wind, but the wind could blow me over. Take me to a place where I can rest my head until the storm is over. I reach out to the sun for an answer to a riddle. Take me to a place where up is down, 'cause I'm just caught up in the middle. Where am I going? Or am I getting older? Time she's had a way with me, and now that time is over. I think I'm on my way now. I think I'm going under. I'm sitting in the dark, my eyes are shut, but I still see the colors. But I still see the colors.
Thank you guys for coming. And we had a great time playing for you guys, and this was a great pleasure for us.